Kelly and I just got back from a contact in law enforcement, and we were discussing what they believe the next stage of this social and environmental crisis is going to be in the United States of America. Let me give you a breaking warning. Every cop out there knows what time it is. No, none of them are dumb to the fact that we are facing a social breakdown. All of the cohesiveness that has kept our country together and countries of the Western world are about to be ripped apart at the threads. They know it, we know it, and now we're just waiting for the catalyst that sends us into that direction. They're getting ready in their own homes, and that's a little bit what we talked about. What they are doing personally versus what the department is doing and what they expect our local area to do. Inside their own homes, they are telling their wives to get ready. They are telling their mothers and fathers to get ready, and they are telling their children to get ready. We talked about sending their kids off to the range with them. We talked about spending time at the range with their family members. Guys, we live in a very self-defense tool heavy environment. There are going to be so many lead shots around the country, so much brass smacking the ground in the United States of America when this finally pops off, that it's going to look like a war has ravaged this country for the last, 2-3 years. You will literally see the gutters of your streets littered with brass and blood stains. That's what they're concerned about. So every cop that we are talking to is getting into a sort of like mini riot control mentality. They are prepared for those larger events to take place, and they're telling us to get ready. We need to take these warnings to heart because we see this coming down the pipeline. A large percentage of our population believes that we are at the point of civil war. An even larger percentage of our population believes that this empire, the United States dollar, and its ruling capabilities around our planet are at an end. And we are starting to see China, Russia, and other countries bolster change. And this change is going to react negatively for our future. So these cops are getting ready, and what we talked about was a little bit of training that we could do together in our local area, and that's what building a local operating force is about. It doesn't have to be only police officers. It doesn't have to be only SWAT guys. It doesn't have to be only military, not only EMTs, not only doctors, not only electricians, not only plumbers. You need to have a little bit of every trade skill, and especially the ones that will be most necessary at the beginning of the breakdown, that is going to help you and your family have the best chance of survival. When I tell you that they expect things to get bad, I'm not even telling you how bad they are explaining them to me. They're talking about the current escalation of violence. They're telling me story by story, without giving away case information, about what they are seeing right now versus what they have seen in their decade on the force. And what they're seeing today is worse than I would ever want to tell you here, because YouTube would say you can't even talk about things that are that bad on the platform. And so instead, we just have to understand that what's being seen in law enforcement, what's being seen in the military, because you remember on yesterday's video, we talked about how the U.S. military is telling their people to get their families ready. Everybody else knows what time it is. Everybody else knows how ready they should have been. Now, when I asked what should I tell people to get ready at home, they started off with, of course, because they're in law enforcement, your ability to hold on to your life. They said, if you can't hold your life for 3 days, what does water matter? And that's absolutely true. If you can't keep your family safe for a 3-day period, what does everybody dying from thirst after 3 days really matter? And so how do you do that? Well, we talked about things like current surveillance cameras. We talked about some of the pitfalls of local environmental factors. And then we talked about weapons. Now, he said that you have to take into consideration every person going into this conflict. If they're not armed before, they're going to watch people be destroyed, and they're going to arm up. And then they're going to be the people who are shooting blindly into the night. And they expect apartment complexes to be razed. They expect entire city areas to be basically torn to the ground, burned to the ground. Now, what he said you wouldn't expect is that the urban areas are expected to be some of the most well-protected and untouched areas. Why? Let me tell you why. In the urban areas, places where they have had to deal with violence, law enforcement issues, other enforcement issues, the government getting into their daily business. They've had to deal with corner drug dealers. They've had to deal with watching people's lives fall apart. Those areas and the people who live there are used to it. And so it's not going to be this great shock. Those people aren't going to be shooting blindly into the night. They're going to be putting well-placed rounds down the range. They know because they've already done it. They know because that's the life they live today.